and welcome to On the Couch with She Will Shine. Today we are extremely lucky to have the lovely Emma McMillan here with us today. Hi Emma, how are you?
Hi Dan, good. Thanks for having me.
That's right, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So Emma's here to share with us her story, her business story, her personal story about how she was in education and she transitioned into a career as a copywriter. So Emma, we're going to start right at the beginning. How many years were you in education for?
Well, in the end it was probably close to about 15, but about 12 of those were in secondary education. And then I had a couple of other stints when we travelled overseas. I worked in a bit of early childhood and so on. But yeah, about 15 years all up.
Yeah. And at what stage did you think maybe this isn't the end of my career, so to speak, as in this is where I want to stay? What made you sort of start thinking, hang on, there's something else that's out there that I want to try?
Yeah. I think actually when I had entered teaching in the first place, I was pretty sure it wasn't my forever career. Even making a decision in the beginning about what I wanted to study was really hard. I felt pulled in a lot of different directions. I'm a very creative person, so I was pulled towards things like journalism or performance, but also the reality of a paycheck, kind of was tempting me about something like education, the stability and so on. And I did love it for a long time, but increasingly over the years the demands became just really extreme administrative demands, but also at that stage I was heading up a performing arts department, so that was evenings of rehearsals and weekends and things like that. And I thought if I was going to have a family as well, it just didn't seem like a very suitable...
Yeah, not the right fit?
Not the right fit, no.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Because you said that you never thought that education would be your be-all and end-all. And I'm kind of reflecting on my own journey. And I was the kid that knew what they wanted to be from year 10. It's like, yep, I want to be a graphic designer. This is it. That's what I want to do. And so for me, that transition was quite easy. But then when it came to the point that I don't want to do this anymore, I don't want to be a graphic designer anymore, that was really difficult because I had been so... this is what I'm doing, and I was so on that line, on that path. So it's really interesting that you said that wasn't what you really wanted, well, it wasn't what you
I think there was a sense of openness and there was a sense of curiosity, and it was a matter of just working out what that right opportunity was to pivot and the moment to pivot. But it was also a little bit strange, I think, especially for my family. My mum was a teacher forever. And the thought of me leaving a profession like that with its stability and the advantages of school holiday breaks and those sorts of things, I think was a little bit hard for her to wrap her mind around. But for me, the timing was right to pivot and the opportunity became more obvious.
So how did you do it? Did you sort of just quit and say that's it? Or did you take a few days? How did you kind of do that transition?
Well, I actually started talking about the idea of copywriting back on our honeymoon maybe 5 years ago, and sort of thought maybe this is something. My background was in creative arts. My degree was in creative arts and I majored in creative writing. So the creative writing was always there sort of below the surface, and I taught English for a long time as part of my teaching career as well. And copywriting was just something that I thought maybe I don't need to go back and do a whole lot of study to transition into this. Maybe I've actually got enough of a skill base where I don't have to commit to full-time study or a long-term study. But still, it took another few years, and then basically the catalyst was falling pregnant and deciding, well, if I'm going to be on leave for a year, maybe this is a great time.
You're going to have nothing to do in those 12 months.
Nothing to do. Do you know what? You're busy when you have a baby, but your mind, you've got headspace.
That's so true.
And that's what I hadn't had. I just couldn't, at the end of my days of work, go home and think about how I would make a change.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the energy, the mental energy to think about it. So finally, I was tired, exhausted, and, a little bit bored from time to time.
In a bit of a phase.
But I finally had this headspace. And so Max was born in February of 2016, and by July I was studying some copywriting essentials. I did a couple of short courses through the Australian Writers Centre, online courses, did them at night, and I was actually really excited to be learning something again and feeling like I was putting my brain to good use as well, because I figured really this was the year that I had to put those things in place.
Yeah.
I started to get my website built at the same time, and then
you were busy.
I was busy. I've always been a busy person, and that's how I roll. So for me, maternity leave, was about coffees and, baby time and so on, but it was also an opportunity to think about, what do I want to do, and what do I want the next stage of my life to actually look like? Because if I don't actually curate it now, I'm just going to go back into the same thing that I was doing before, and I wasn't happy there.
Yeah, kind of get sucked back into the vortex.
Yeah, so I thought it's really now or never. And I knew it would make me a better parent if I was doing something that was giving me energy rather than sucking it from me. So proceeded to then email all the friends I had, anyone I knew who had a business, or anybody I knew who knew somebody or whatever, and said, this is what I'm doing now. I'm a copywriter. Of course, it wasn't as easy as that. A few little jobs came trickling in, which kind of gave me the confidence to start to be a little bit more honest about what I was doing and open about it.
That's a big move, telling everybody as well.
Yeah.
Because often we can hide behind, hide behind a website, so to speak.
Yes. Again, but that was, for me, it was part of it. It was like saying, if I'm going to do this seriously, I have to own it. But of course, financially, by the end of that 12 months off, it wasn't quite sustaining me enough to pay the bills. So I did go back to teaching. I mean, I had an ongoing position, so I kind of felt like I really wanted to be sure if I was going to give it up, was I serious?
That's actually a great opportunity for that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can kind of say, okay, I'm doing this, but then you kind of get that cold feet, but you don't have the opportunity to either make or break.
Yes.
But for you to have that
it almost felt like,
time.
when you're younger and you break up with people, and then you sort of just think, I just need to make sure that this is 100% not the right person.
Yeah.
And then I can say, no, it's not right. I felt like a little bit about that with my job. So I went back for 9 months and I worked a couple of days a week. And then I had a little extra day where I did some copywriting work. And by the end of term 3, I'd had enough. And I actually took on a social media role. I decided that if I was going to leave this ongoing position, I should probably take a couple of days a week in an actual role.
Yep. Keep the funds
rolling in, just, again, stability and so on. But it was my transition. It was my ticket out.
Yeah.
My principal was a little bit shocked. And I said it, and then after I said it, I thought, oh God, do I regret that, or do I feel good about that? But I did feel good about that. So I finished up at the end of term 3 in 2017.
Yep.
And then took on this role for the next 7 or 8 months until April of last year, when I decided, now's the time, I'm all in freelance.
You've got nothing to lose now, let's do it.
Got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And that was a big turning point, but also a point which made me decide I had to get really serious about it and start to be more, I guess, present in terms of how we're showing up on social media, working on my SEO for Google and all those sorts of things, and being in the places where I needed to be, to be seen, to be known, to be to develop my business. And
so what sort of personal support did you have around you? Because that's not an easy thing to do.
No.
But you've got other family responsibilities as well.
Yeah, of course. I'm really lucky to have an incredibly supportive husband who actually has spent his career in marketing. So he was a good person.
He's
to
handy to have
around. He was incredibly supportive, and I think he knew how frustrated I was with teaching. I think he knew that it wasn't filling my soul like I really wanted to be feeling about work. So he was incredibly supportive, but without him I just couldn't have taken the chance on it. Also family support. I mean,
how was your mum?
She was she's still, I think, coming to terms with it, frankly. Look, she's been great, and I think the longer it goes on, and the more she's able to recognise some of the clients that I work with, like, she thinks it's more legitimate, I think, now. My dad was great. He actually pivoted during his career a few times and did different things, so I think he could sort of see that I had a plan in mind. And I think they both know that I'm a tenacious person, and for me this was never, I'm just going to try it and see how it goes. For me this is like, well, this is my thing now.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't about, will I see if it works? It was just, it will work.
And so how did you go about, you told your friends what you were doing, but sort of getting those clients and sort of really turning it into, so you were doing social media jobs. How many days a week was that one?
So that was 2 days a week.
Yep.
And then I had about a half a day on a Wednesday when my parents were looking after Max. So he was in childcare a couple of days while I was working this other job. And then, about 4 hours on a Wednesday, I had to do my copywriting work. Yep. And I usually had something each week to work on. It had been flicked through by a friend or, a friend of a friend and so on,
Yep.
but just little bits. And it was all about how I wrapped up those projects and getting testimonials from people.
Yeah.
And then asking them, do you have anyone that you know, or can you refer me on, and so on and so forth. That sort of led to that, I guess, development of my brand and
the flow and effect.
Yeah, the flow and effect of that, and there was a lot of word of mouth stuff in that first year.
So how you got the clients sort of steadily rolling in through all those channels, but running a business, as we know, is so much more than just doing the actual work.
Mm-hmm.
There's the bookkeeping and there's everything else around that, and you got to keep marketing. So how to all that bigger picture. How did that all go?
You don't get paid for any of
those
things.
Right.
I love it. I love it because I love learning. I love learning new things, and so for me, conquering my zero was like, I really enjoyed the challenge of that. Because it felt like I was succeeding when I was sort of learning things, and I basically had my website set up for me by someone else, but I've made lots of changes to that. I've built on my own SEO and so on, and over time I've gradually seen things working really well, and so I get a lot of satisfaction from those sorts of things. Social media I find challenging to show up on regularly. I think because I had that stint too in social media, it took away the spontaneity.
Yeah, took away the fun maybe.
But it was a great training ground, and it did also teach me a lot about strategy and so on. So that's really helped me to be able to work on my own marketing strategy, but also to be able to create that for clients and so on. But it's gradually been a process of, like, when you first start a business, you take all the clients you can get, anyone with an open wallet. Yes, time me up. But now I'm at the point where I've gradually started to specialise and niche a bit more, and I'm so comfortable in the space that I'm working in now, which is basically with education clients, which is a natural fit for me. So universities and childcare centres and places like that, healthcare clients, which I'm really interested in health and fitness and those sorts of things, so that's a nice fit. And then lifestyle, so at the moment I'm writing about lingerie and I'm writing about food and things like that, and that's for fun. So I don't know that I've necessarily niched down into just one thing, but I've narrowed it down enough that I can say to someone confidently, I don't want to write about finance. I don't want to write about, technology.
But I know someone, here you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the brilliant things about, getting to know the women in this community and other communities that I'm a part of, is that there is this incredible business bond and this incredible, copywriters in Melbourne and Australia seem to be incredibly, it's like a camaraderie that I didn't expect.
It's so true. I found copywriters and photographers.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It's a really collaborative vibe, and just that ability to refer work on, or to, share advice, give advice, all those sorts of things. It's just a very sharing space. And I've got lots of work that way, and I've been able to also give work to other people as well. And it's just great knowing that different people have different things that they specialise in.
Yeah.
And there's enough for everyone.
Was that difficult, sort of knowing, because we all, you go through the point where you have clients that are like, oh, that's no longer serving me, but actually saying to people, I don't do that anymore, or, you know what I mean, like actually being strong on your niche and sort of following through with that. Was that a really difficult turning point for you?
I think what was interesting is that as soon as I really decided that and changed all the copy on my website to sort of reflect that, that's where my inquiries have been coming. So I think it's what I've started to put out is what's coming back to me. So, it would be very rare for me to get someone out of that space to contact me. And you know what, if it was a great job, I'd probably take it, but it's just that I've decided that I've got certain areas that I'm, better at writing about, more confident writing about, enjoy writing about more. And so that's where I'd rather.
And that's the thing, running your own business, you get to make the decisions about what you take on.
That's why
and
we
what
do
you
it
don't.
in the first place,
Exactly.
isn't it? For that sense of freedom and choice. And what's the point if we just find ourselves miserable doing things that we don't want to take on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, now you're in this niche.
Mm-hmm.
You're obviously enjoying where you are now.
Mm.
What do you think, what's next?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I mean, I'm really enjoying taking on some short-term contracts and things like that. Projects that allow me to get, my teeth sort of sunk into to work, and also the opportunity to work with teams as well, because I think that's a challenge when you're running your own business, is that solo element. And again, why I just thrive on and crave the opportunities to co-work and things like that. I really enjoy that. So doing some work with other people is great as well. I don't know. This year's there's been big changes. I've got my own office at home. I've got some really fantastic clients. I'm just a little bit prepared to see where the year takes me.
It's funny what happens to show up when you need it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I do wonder at some point if there will be another pivot back to either workshops or speaking or the sorts of things that my background really lends itself to, because I do miss that public speaking element of my work, and I do miss that interactive teaching element as well sometimes. So
that's an interesting thing. It's like kind of sort of coming full circle.
Yes.
Back to that.
And realising actually what the transferable skills were and being able to find new ways to use them.
Yeah.
Because I think, it's very easy to think, but I did this and now I'm trying to do this, and where's the, cohesion? But actually when you pull it apart, putting on a show for 6 months of the year, what is that other than project management, timelines, managing expectations, delivering, all that sort of stuff, managing people. So there were so many skills that...
Was there any point after you left teaching that you thought, what have I done?
Never.
Well, never. Isn't that interesting?
Never.
That's fantastic. Wow.
I think it was so far done.
Yeah. You done enough. Get me out of here.
Yeah, that's funny because I actually live really close to the school I was teaching at, and I popped in a couple of times and did emergency days here and there, especially just in the first little while. Just again, I think I was very nervous to rely on my new thing as my only income. But no, I don't, because I'm still friends with a few of those teachers, and I hear enough that makes me realise it's it was the right decision for me.
You've taken away the good elements from that and brought them with you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's been the highlight?
Oh, so many. And it's interesting because very few of my friends that I had before I began this business were in business. And so what it's basically meant is that through the process of starting this business, I've met and made so many new friends and contacts. It's really opened up this whole new world to me, in the latter part of my 30s, that I just kind of thought, this was what career was, but now I see that actually this is what career can be. And what I've learned, who I've met, what I've been challenged by and exposed to has just been so inspiring. And I just, as I said to you earlier, I love learning. So for me, I'm not afraid about what's the next challenge. I feel like I'm ready for whatever
comes next.
Whatever comes next.
Yeah. And so, you said you love learning. So you obviously love learning, you love teaching others. But how are you, I know that I've gone through a lot of kind of personal development that was unexpected when I became a business owner. What sort of personal development and what sort of things do you use to, teach yourself things along this journey? Because you're really reliant on yourself to be self-motivated through it all.
Absolutely. Look, I access a lot of webinars and podcasts. I'm a massive podcast listening queen. And whenever I want to go, walking between appointments, things like that, I've always got something in my ears to listen to, whether it be, the Hot Copy copywriting podcast, or this is Chadwick, bold branding stuff. It's just things to get me thinking, flying solo, and so on, because there's little nuggets that you can pull from all sorts of different places. So that's been really useful, as well as professional development, CopyCon and things like that have just been huge for me in terms of helping me grow my self-confidence. And just the ability to back yourself. When you're the front of your business and you're the one who's dealing with clients, at the coalface, you have to be able to back yourself. So I think rather than standing behind, an administrative team or, a leadership team, you are it. So I feel like I've grown a lot in my ability to...
Do you think that's like, because you're obviously a confident person, Emma, but there's a lot of women out there who don't have that confidence when they start their business, who are afraid to sort of share with their friends and family what they're doing. Is there something that you could sort of suggest to those people that would help them in that? Because that's hard, because going to a networking event, if you're too scared to tell your parents or your family what you're doing, how are you going to walk into a room full of strangers and sort of start talking about what you're doing? So is there any sort of suggestions that you have that you can pass on?
I think for me, one of the first places I started to connect with people was actually online and social media stuff. So while I don't love it as like a posting platform all the time, it is where I met my community. People like Kate O'Mealy, we met over Instagram, and when I was then looking for a networking group to be a part of, she was the one who suggested She Will Shine. Now that was just pure, chance in some respects that I came across her, but also not chance because I was actively looking to connect with people who were doing what I was doing. I actually don't think, I don't think you have to tell the people closest to you what you're doing if you don't really want to. I actually think it's sometimes less scary to talk to people outside of those people and tell them first, But even though I do have a natural confidence, networking events still terrify me and those sorts of things.
I hate networking events.
And I always want to turn up with someone else so I can hold hands with them, as we walk in. But I think you just have to fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
There's no other option. And so, I think whether you decide it's through, showing up on social media, where you don't have to use your voice necessarily, or whether it's through, what you say on your website, or, even just emailing someone or getting in touch, just putting yourself out there in whatever way feels most comfortable for you. I think that's what you can do.
That's the best way to do it. Yeah. And finding...
You can't do it alone.
Yeah.
You cannot do it alone.
I know this.
I'm preaching to the convert.
Yeah, that is. I think you've just got to find, one thing I've noticed, because, I hate networking events. That's why I created one that I like, because I couldn't find any out there that I liked going to.
Oh, awkward.
Yeah, exactly. But I had to go to all those events to know what I liked and what I didn't like. So I think it's just kind of showing up and doing that, faking till you're making it, but also showing up to see if they're your people or not.
Yes, you have to try. Trial and error, and eventually you'll find that sweet spot. But you're not going to find it sitting on your couch at home or on your
computer.
Yeah, behind your computer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Emma, thank you for finding your sweet spot at She Will Shine.
Love what you do.
How's that for a segue? But thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story.
It's my pleasure. What this community has done for me personally and for my business has just been astronomical, truly. From your support, Danielle, but also the support of everyone around me. And I'm not just being paid to say this, but truly it is game-changing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So thank you so much to Emma McMillan for being here today. We'll link to Emma's social so you can connect with this amazing lady with our show notes. But it's been a pleasure, and it's also been a pleasure watching you. I've known you for a year and a half now, almost 2 years, and you're a doer. So just seeing you getting out there time and time again to find what works for you and just getting on with it is amazing. I'm very proud of you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time on the She Will Shine podcast.